Okay, good morning. In front of you is Mr. Ngozi. Mr. Ngozi, the teacher at Ngulego Higher Primary in Tanzania NU1. Mr. Ngozi teaches technology grade 7, and I do hope that you have been able to access our first video, which was mainly based on the recap of the technology grade 7 for the work that we've done from the first term until the last day of the first term. And I hope the video was helpful. It was a little bit slow. I was a little bit slow when I gave that lesson. I wanted all of us to be able to be reminded in terms of what we have done with all the work that we've covered from first term in order to usher ourselves to the new topics of this term. Before we go forward, there's something I want to show you, a book. This book is called Sasol Inzalo, and it is accessed from the internet. You can access it from the internet. It's accessible there and download it. This one is a teacher's guide. Then the one which is accessible from the internet is the learner's book. It's going to help you very much during this time of coronavirus. And I hope you do have things to help protect yourself against coronavirus, things like a mask and things like a sanitizer. Those are the things which have been proven by World Health Organization to be protective measures which can be used by everyone to protect against coronavirus. Today is the first lesson, or is supposed to be the first lesson of the work that we are supposed to cover during the second term. And during our recap lesson, the video that is accessible on YouTube, I have asked grade 7 learners to go out there, make a small research about structures. What is a structure? How do you tell that an object is a structure? That is mainly because our lesson will be based on structures today. And I hope all of you have done that. Now, let's ask ourselves a question which says, what is a structure? If you look around you, there are many objects. Around me, there's a table, there's a microwave, there's a fridge, there's chairs, there's everything else. Those are good examples of structures. So how can we define a structure? We can define a structure as an object which is made or constructed or created from a variety of parts which are held together to form one object. A good example of what I've just explained is a chair. We know that a chair is made out of many parts which are held together to make that object to be what? To be a chair. So for a moment, grade 7, I want you to make a list of all the objects that you think are structures. So structures are in three types. The first type of a structure is a frame structure. The second type of a structure is a shell structure. And then the third type of a structure is called a solid structure. All these three types of structures, they fall within the definition that we have given of any object that is constructed from a variety of parts that are held together to make one object. Examples are the chairs and all the examples that you have listed in your paper there, and I hope you are listing these examples in your paper. So how can we tell that this particular kind of a structure is a frame structure? Well, a frame structure is marked by its ability to support the load. Some frame structures are marked by their ability to be able to span the gaps. I will explain that a little bit further when I get to it. Now, take a chair for an example, and you sit in that chair. Once you sit in that chair, you become a load and you get to be supported by that chair, which is a what? A frame structure. Now, if you look on top of the roof of your house, there is wood there, there is timber, which is made to be very strong from a lot of parts. We normally call those parts framework. Those framework are meant to make that frame structure to be strong, so that when that frame structure has to support load, it doesn't collapse. If you are crossing a bridge, you will see that a bridge contains a lot of what? Of framework, which helps to make that structure to be very, very strong and give it its ability to support the load of people and cars which are passing by. So that is how you can see a structure, a frame structure. I want you to list all other examples that you think they fall with the frame structure. And let's move now to the shell structure. What distinguishes a shell structure from a frame structure? Now, you must remember that a frame structure is marked by its ability to support load and is characterized by a lot of framework which is meant to make that structure to be very, very strong. And how is that structure different from a shell structure? Now, a shell structure is marked by its ability to protect what is inside or what is supposed to be inside. Now, a shell structure has to be hollow inside so that it's able to contain something or is able to protect something. Now, a good example of a shell structure will be an egg. You will see an outer part of an egg and then you will see an inner part of an egg. But if that outer part of an egg is damaged, that means the inner part of that egg will collapse. So the shell structure is marked by its ability to protect what is inside. You also know a good example of a snail. Those small things which normally are normally seen during the morning. Once you disturb that snail, it will quickly roll itself inside that shell in order to protect itself. That is why we say a shell structure is marked by its ability to have an outer shell which protects what is supposed to be inside. And then we move on. I want you, before we move on, to make a list of all the structures that you think are shell structures. Then we move on to the last type of a structure, the one we said solid structure. Now, how does a solid structure different from the shell structure and the frame structure? A solid structure is marked by hardness. If you remember about the three phases of matter, the solids, the liquids, and gases, and we look in terms of the particles of those phases of matter, you will appreciate that the solid phase of matter is marked by the particles which are very closely packed without any ability to move. That is, those types of structures are very strong and are very rigid and can be used to build the frame structures. Must remember that frame structures too must be strong in order to support the loads of people that are passing by and in order to span the gaps. If there's village A on your right hand side and then there's village B on your left hand side, there has to be a structure that spans that gap. Not necessarily to close the gap, but to span the gap in order for people and cars to be able to pass by. And if there is water that must pass underneath, then that water is able to pass by. That is why we say we don't close the gap, we span the gap. So such structures must be strong. So those structures are built from solid structures, which are marked by their strong and rigidness in order to help build some things which are very strong. Now, each of these three types of structures, they all have their function. Now, the function of the frame structure, as I have mentioned to you, is to support load, is to span the gap. The function of the shell structure is to do what? Is to contain what is inside. The function of the solid structure is to do what now? Is to help build frame structures which are strong. And I want you to make a list of all the structures that you think they fall within the solid structures. And then our next lesson will be on classification of the structures. And I hope by the time we meet for our next video, you will be able to remember all the work that we have done so far, and you will have revised all the work that we have done so far.